we go. Welcome to today's tips on how to, or the importance of exercise in kids. And I invited my special friend, Kevin Rail, who is an expert in exercise and different types of exercises for kids and adults. And I invited him to come to talk a little bit more about the importance of exercising kids, the best time, and what kinds of exercise she will be doing when we're all kind of housebound. So welcome, Kevin.
Why, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, Melissa.
Yeah.
And on this beautiful snowy day in Park City, which we can't do anything about, which we were just talking about a minute ago.
Right.
But it could be worse, and there could be worse things in life. So let's focus on the positive. And the positive in my mind is one of the plights that I have, and I kind of put it to the back burner, but years ago that I did have was, how on earth can we reverse the childhood obesity epidemic, which we don't even hear about anymore? And it has taken second fiddle, not only to the coronavirus, but to everything else that's going on in the world. Mm-hmm. So in my mind and in my eyes, that has not vanished. And not only the childhood obesity epidemic has not vanished, but the lack of physical movement or physical education that kids are receiving has not vanished either. Right. I feel we had an epidemic several years ago on the fact that PE's class was getting eliminated and dusted in so many towns across America. Do you remember that when it was happening? Like it was a big thing?
Mm-hmm, I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was my goal, my mission, I'm talking like years ago, to try to create some kind of ripple effect that instills better teaching protocols for kids in school on physical literacy, I wanted to call it. Not just PE, but physical literacy, learning about not just exercise and how to do jumping jacks and squat thrusts, but the importance of physical fitness and how it can apply to all their avenues of your life. Right. So when you asked me to talk about this subject, it kind of just like rekindled all of my old thought patterns. And it's like they started welling up in my brain, just kind of like when you have a bad relationship go wrong and someone mentions somebody's name and you go, ooh, and you cringe. Well, that's kind of how it happened with me.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, great. I mean, so let's just kind of start at the beginning. From your perspective, I mean, you kind of mentioned childhood obesity, but in general, what are some of the benefits of exercise? I mean, we all know them, but for kids in particular, what is your take?
Well, you know, we hear a lot about hyperactivity disorder these days with kids, ADD and like Asperger's and all these conditions and all these diseases that just kind of came to the forefront over the past, I'm going to go back to the decade thing. Like a decade ago, I started hearing about all this stuff emerging with kids. And like everyone I know back home in Pennsylvania, especially, like everybody has kids with some kind of brain problem. They're not necessarily like, it's not like a condition that causes them to be like absolutely, put in a special class or something, but everyone has a kid that has some kind of problem or deficiency with their brain or something like that. And I'm like, why is this?
Yeah.
What's that?
Things like focus, concentration, they're too interactive, or they can't class, those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Hyperactivity disorder. That's it. I guess that'd be called. But anyway, I'm like, where was that stuff when I was growing up? I wasn't there. I mean, I just don't remember it. There's like one kid in my whole school who had a problem with obesity. Maybe not my whole school, my whole class, I'd say. There was one kid who had some kind of learning disability, and it wasn't major. There was one kid who needed to wear glasses because he couldn't concentrate and see the blackboard. And now it's like there's 1 out of 100 that don't have the problems. And it's like they become so prominent, and I'm just mesmerized and I'm shocked. And I noticed as these problems started to develop more and more, the PE classes started to disappear and the quality of PE classes started to disappear. And even as recently as like 3 summers ago, I was training a kid here in school, or not in school, at the gym. And he was a senior in high school, and his gym class was so pathetic that he had his dad ask me to send an email to his principal and ask if he can be excused from his PE class to leave school early to come train with me. And I explained to him why I felt that way and what I did and what I was doing with him and why I felt it was beneficial. He excused him in 2 seconds. He's like, sure. He's like, all we do is that we go out and walk around and look at flowers, and we don't, nothing. There's nothing scheduled, nothing planned, no learning at all. They don't learn the basics. They don't learn anything. So all that being said, I noticed the decline in PE as there was a gradual incline in all of these attention deficit disorders and all these problems kids were having too, a direct increase in that. And I'm like, let's go figure it out. Well, the medium of not necessarily the endorphin rush you get from exercise, from getting into a good 30-minute run where you're sweating and hi-ya and all that kind of stuff and that kind of jazz. We already know that's a baseline benefit of exercise. You get the endorphin rush, it improves your mood, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so let's just take that and park it. And let's say kids don't want to get all sweated up at school and go back to class. When I was going to school, when you were going to school, we were about the same time frame. We went to PE class, and I couldn't wait to get to PE class. We would play basketball. We'd go outside and run. We had the President's Council fitness class stuff where we had to do like pull-ups, dead arm hang for the girls, 50-yard dash. We were like gung-ho. Me and my brother would spend 6 months training just for that alone. And it would always happen like in March. And I was always disgusted because I could never get the pull-ups. I get everything else, the sit-ups, the run, the 50-yard dash. Couldn't get the pull-ups because my arms were so long. And I would practice at home, and I'd come home from school, and I'd go right downstairs and I'd practice. And it was like we were like, exercise was on the forefront of our brain.
Yeah.
And it has gone out the door and out the wayside. Yeah. Along with that, PE classes have been being canceled and thrown apart. Oh, budget cuts is the big excuse. I'm like, how much money do you need to be in a room and show a kid how to do a proper push-up or a proper plank or a proper squat or put a combination of 3 exercises together? You need zero space, $0.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it sounds like now would be like a great time to start instituting an exercise regime for your kids. That's like, like kind of like home PE right now, right?
Absolutely. And what I was telling you earlier also, I actually wrote a paper on this in college. That's how long ago it was, on how we can fix this problem. And the way one of the things we can do is create a PE period first thing in the morning called physical literacy class. You can call it what you want, but I like the word physical literacy. Or PE literacy, something like along those lines, right? Where you teach kids not just how to move properly, but the why behind it. The better, like, there's a great movie called The Motivation Factor, if I might give that a plug, if it's okay, by my friend Doug Orchard. And he goes deep into the science behind PE and the benefits from it. And not only is it good for the brain, but it's also reduces bullying. It reduces racism. Kids of all makes and models and colors and sizes join together when PE is going on, when they have to do like a hard achievement. And all of a sudden, all that crap is left at the door and it's not there. Yeah. And I noticed the same thing with adults that used to come to my classes when I would teach them at the gym before they got locked down and shut down, that people of different sizes, shapes, and colors and religions would come to the class, and all of a sudden, none of that mattered. What mattered was I had someone standing on one foot doing a hand walk and doing a push-up and doing a log roll, and they had to think, and they had to think fast. So when you add the element of complexity and cross-body patterns into movements, what it does is it sends this shockwave to the system of the brain, the nervous system, and brain cells light up like firecrackers. Yeah. So if kids get out of bed in the morning and the first thing they do is 5 minutes of complex movements before they touch a book, before they open a computer, before they start texting their friends or do anything, their brain cells are going to get fired up like light bulbs, and their ability to think and concentrate is going to go through the roof. And that should be the first thing applied with homeschooling, with schooling at regular schools, with PE class, whatever.
Right. So can you give me some examples of what are some of these cross-body patterns so people kind of know a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah. So let me just give you a little bit more detailed information about that. So exercise predominantly with a lot of people is done in a linear fashion. So when I say linear, it means line, like straight line. So if you're sitting on a bicep curl machine, I'm going to adjust my camera. You prop your elbows down on this pad and you grab this hinged bar that's on a lever arm, and then you just go like this, back and forth, back and forth. So you're going like this, which is technically the sagittal plane, which goes this way, but it's in a linear fashion. It's in a line. So it's one line. So it takes, on a scale of 1 to 10 of complexity of the brain, that's about a 1.5. I could teach that to a 2-year-old in 2 seconds, a second grader in half a second, and say, sit on this thing and do this. Okay.
Right.
Linear motion, tricep extension, linear, leg extension, linear, one line. Now, if you put your hands under your chest like this and widen your feet, shoulder width apart, and you drop into a goblet squat, drop your elbows inside your knees, put your hands on the floor, walk forward, and then raise your opposite arm and leg and the other opposite arm and leg, and then walk back and stand back up. You've just done a cross body pattern because you're crossing the midline of your body because you have to think in 2 different planes.
Right.
So another thing you can do is you can literally stand up and bring your elbow to your knee. You can do it in a chair even. I'm just going to sit back. So if you just went like this in a chair, if you had a kid sit in a chair and do this for 30 seconds, back and forth, where they're touching their elbow to their knee, they're crossing the midline of their body right here with a complex movement pattern. So those patterns have a massive transfer effect to brain function. So anytime you do that kind of chopping motion or crossing of the body, That's the key. That's the secret sauce right there. And that's what is eclipsing everyone with exercise. So I have built program after program over the years with that in mind.
Yeah.
And when you do like rolling, like a log roll, or your body's rocking and rolling back and forth like this, and then you incorporate some kind of movement pattern like that with it, then it's just like your brain's on fire. So literally 30 seconds of that will fire up the brain. 5 minutes of it, it'll be through the roof. So it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be intense. You don't have to be sweating. It just has to be complex and crossing the midline of the body. And that's why I like tools like Indian clubs and gadas and maces, because you're always crossing the midline of your body. Anytime you go around your head with an instrument, it's a cross body pattern.
So what would be, like the top 5 cross body pattern exercises you would recommend for, maybe kids and adolescents, just in general? Something that they could easily do and that wouldn't be too strenuous or time consuming, I guess, or too hard or too difficult to learn.
Would you like me to jump back there and demonstrate them?
Yes, I would.
You would? Let me unplug my earphones.
Okay, perfect.
All right, let me try to come up with 5. I can definitely pick 3 right off the top of my head.
Okay.
Okay, so I just did one. Now we can do this. Line your feet like so. You put your arms out, and then what we're going to do is a cross-body windmill. So give your legs straight. You just reach down, touch your opposite toe like this. So kids love to do stuff like this anyway.
They do. They do.
That's one thing right there. And you can do this. You can have them stand. This is super simple. All I got to do is tap their opposite knee like this.
Okay.
Right hand goes to the left knee, left hand goes to right knee. There's a cross-body pattern. Here's another one. This one's a little more complex. Now we're going to do the reverse of that. It's called a scorpion. So you're going to raise your left hand, and you're going to reach back and tap your opposite foot.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right hand goes, and that's behind your body, and you have to turn your head, so your neck is getting a little action, which it needs to. There's one right there. Okay, now, I think that was 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 2 more.
Okay.
Now we're going to do a pattern like this on the ground. You're going to extend your opposite arm and leg out in a straight line, and you're going to bring your knee to your elbow.
Yeah.
Cross-body pattern. Same on the other side. And then, complete opposite, lying on your back, bicycle crunch, knee to elbow. My bike's in the way.
Perfect.
Cross-body pattern. So a lot of people don't know about the bicycle crunch. It's a great ab exercise, but it also doubles as a cross-body pattern because your elbow and you're coming across.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's 5 right there that I just did in a matter of 30 seconds.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are really easy, and you could easily incorporate those into a morning routine just to kind of get kids up and moving, kind of get their brain fired up and activated, as you mentioned. And then it kind of jumps me into another question I had is, you mentioned the morning as being a great time to exercise. Are there other times that are great times to exercise, specifically for kids and adolescents?
Yes, I would say morning is the best time because you're fresh out of bed, you have energy, and you sometimes have nervous energy and stuff like that. And it's usually morning is usually the time before kids start doing their homeschool stuff. So the coronavirus is, I look at it as, yes, the coronavirus is crippling everybody and everyone's like, woe is me, the world's coming to an end. But you know what? I also look at it as opportunity, and I'm like, what's missing, what's lacking? Let's figure it out. And this gives us plenty of time to figure it out. And I figured out one of the things, and right now this is it. It's bringing families back together. It's bringing community back together. It's causing people to really appreciate hugs and emotional connection with people and with their kids, which might have been lost because of travel schedules, busy all the time working with parents and their kids. Everyone's so homebound, and they get to connect better with the kids. So I would say first thing in the morning, absolutely. Do it with your kids. Make it fun. Don't be like, oh, I never have my kids around this much. They're driving me crazy. Well, if they're driving you crazy, do something with them. Right. Get them active so they get tired, so they take naps, so you can go and focus on your other stuff that you want to do. So first thing in the morning, definitely in the middle of the afternoon, give them a recharge.
Right.
And if they're going to do any kind of tests, right before the tests.
Right.
So I would say those time frames are the best.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I mentioned another postmate, especially if your kid's going to sit down and do a big chunk of homework or packets or do their online school, have them exercise right before and then have them sit down. They'll be able to focus and concentrate better. They won't be as restless or fidgety, and they'll really be able to kind of knock that homework out much quicker.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this type of movement stuff as well is also super good. Anxiety and depression in kids these days is off the charts. I'm devastated when I hear about it. It crushes me. It breaks my heart when I hear about so many cases. And I don't even see it sometimes with the kids. Like, I hear it from parents. I hear it from people on the street. And I'm like, why? I'm like, they seem so happy and they seem so okay. Like, oh my gosh, they're suffering massive anxiety and massive depression, and like bullying and like problems with like you know, I hear a lot about I don't even know exactly what the term is, but kids that are confused about their gender and stuff. They're like, I mean, that's a huge epidemic right now. Kids being like super bullied and super depressed about not knowing like where they belong or where they're going with that.
Right.
And I'm like, it just breaks my heart. And these kind of patterns and this kind of movement, they really help improve mood as well. I mean, I do a lot of the, you know about my eating club stuff. It took me a lot of time to get to where I'm at with eating clubs. But I feel those are absolutely healing tools.
Yeah.
And anytime I work on eating clubs, even for like 30 seconds or something, and I'm really concentrating on a new pattern or a pattern I'm working on, my brain just gets like lit up and I feel so much better mentally afterward. Depression or like anxiety or whatever I might have been feeling, even if it's a minute amount, it's absolutely gone in a second. I'm like, this application can work so well with kids. It's unbelievable.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And I also, you know, I don't know what your recommendation, but usually when I see kids and teens in my office, I usually recommend that they have some kind of cardiovascular exercise at least 5 days a week for 50 to 60 minutes. And I think, you know, they need more exercise than even adults do, but I'm wondering what your take is on that.
I would say that sounds pretty accurate. I always use the 30-minute rule, and I'm like a minimum of 30 minutes of exercise every day. And if you want to go deeper into the weeds and call out cardio, then I would say for kids, definitely 60 minutes, at least 3 times a week.
Right.
Because when we were going to school, it wasn't even a question. We had 3 recesses. I don't know how it was absolutely in your school, but mine, we had a morning recess for like 10 minutes. Then we had lunch, and then we had a recess after lunch, and then we had a long recess, like at the end of the day before we went on the buses. It was like 30 minutes long every single day. And then we still did fine in school. We got all our work done. And we would just like sit in class, tapping our feet and our hands. We couldn't wait for recess to start. I don't even know if they have recess anymore. They better.
I think it's not every day from what I hear. Well, I think it's obviously school dependent, but sometimes it's only like once or twice a week for, you know, a time period. But I think the younger kids do have a daily schedule, at least in some of the schools up here. But I think it really does vary, you know, by school district and community.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, any other last tips before we sign off?
Just make sure to move every single day. At the very least, you don't even have to go complex. Yeah. I would just say that the main rule that I would say to all you parents out there that have kids or have any kind of association with kids, etc., is just get 30 minutes of movement in a day. Even if it's walking, connect with Mother Nature as best you can. I know we have the coronavirus, but you know, especially here in our town, it's a ghost town out there. I've been out there walking around and doing things, and like no one's out there. People are like, people are yelling at me. You got to stay inside. You got to stay locked up. Don't go outside. I'm like, what? I'm like, there's nobody there. I'm like, how am I going to get the virus if there's no one out there carrying it and I'm not doing anything? I'm just walking. The sun actually is beneficial at killing the bacteria, the virus. And if the sun's out, I'm out there. Yeah. So 30 minutes of physical activity every single day, and try to incorporate some cross-body patterns. That's my main advice. Start there. That's a good starting point. Then you get more fancy with like exercises, routines, and like bringing implements in if you want, Indian clubs and like all the fancy stuff I was talking about before. But just as a baseline, 30 minutes of physical activity a day, try to get some cross-body patterns in.
Awesome.
That'll go a long way.
Yeah. Well, I think that's some really helpful tips that I bet people haven't heard about before, especially that cross-body pattern. And I know I've worked with you a lot, so I know all about it, but I wanted you to be able to share that information, especially, like I said, for teens and younger kids, because I think it's another really important tool to help reduce stress and to improve, you know, brain function and attention and focus, and get rid of the wiggles that I'm sure they all have extra of right now because we're all stuck at home.
Oh yeah. I know all about the wiggles. I always have them anyway. No, I really got them.
So, well, thank you so much. And if people wanted to reach out and ask you any questions, is there a way they could reach you?
Yeah, you can reach me at restoreyourfitness.com. That's my email. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and my YouTube page is My Six Pack Challenge. And I also encourage all of you to seriously look up the movie The Motivation Factor. You can find it at themotivationfactor.com, motivationmovie.com.
Okay.
And I believe that's on Amazon. I'm not sure. But if not, just hit me up and I'll give you further details. but that movie's great about going into the weeds about how beneficial PE is for kids.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You bet. It's been great, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Take care, everybody.